Hello and welcome back to Nathan Bell's podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Today, Nate would like to talk about attending the Quakers meeting.
Right, today I'm going to talk a bit about the Quakers religious group or religious movement. And the reason I'm going to talk about the Quakers is because my mother recently joined the local Quakers group who are based in Mayfield. They have their worship centre in Mayfield, and I attended the Quakers meeting with my mother some weeks ago to support her. The reason my mother has joined the Quakers is because she's a deeply spiritual woman. I'm also deeply spiritual, but also my mother has joined the Quakers because she wants to enhance her social circle. She's not a very social being. I'm not a very social being either. We're all very Asperger's in my family. We're not very social, so she's trying to improve her social life. She's going to the meetings hoping that she can make some new friends. She doesn't have many friends. I don't have many friends either. So far, my mother has told me that she hasn't been too confident having conversations with her new friends at the Quakers meeting, but she's trying to build her confidence so she can stay a bit longer after the meeting and have a bit more of a social conversation with the people there. But she's very shy, so she hasn't yet mustered up the confidence to have a conversation with the people at the group. So I'll tell you a bit about what my mother has told me she believes the Quakers are about, and then I'll tell you a bit about what happened at the meeting I attended, and then I'll tell you a bit about what Wikipedia says about the Quakers. So my mother came to me telling me she had found out about the Quakers, and her view from her research of what the Quakers believe in is that the Quakers believe in like a sort of free belief system where you don't have to have any specific belief, you don't have to have any specific doctrine. She said they don't preach a specific doctrine, and that everyone is free to believe what they want to believe and to worship God in their own interpretation of God together, and that you can have your own interpretation of what God is, and your own beliefs, and that you don't actually even have to believe in God to be a Quaker. So it's a group of spiritual people who come together, and you're not being indoctrinated by a pastor. They don't have a pastor. They don't have a preacher who stands there and preaches doctrine to you and attempts to indoctrinate you into the views of the church. It's all about having your own individual views and your own individual interpretation of God. And that's what she liked about it, because she doesn't want to be indoctrinated into a cult. So she liked the idea that the Quakers believe that you can believe in whatever you want, and you don't have to adhere to a set doctrine. Now, I don't know if she's right about that based on what I was looking at about the Quakers on Wikipedia, but we'll come to that in a minute. So what happened? So there are different sects of the Quakers who have different beliefs and different ways of doing things. And I attended the Quakers meeting with my mother in Mayfield some weeks ago, and I'll take you through what happened at the meeting. Basically, we all came in and there were a bunch of chairs around in a circle, and we all sit down, and basically what we do is we sit in silence for an hour, and it's a sort of a meditation. And so yes, there is nobody preaching at you, and there is no pastor or preacher preaching a doctrine to you and attempting to mind control you. So that much of what she believes is true of this meeting. And from what Wikipedia was saying, this sort of behaviour or conduct in Quakers meetings is relevant to one particular sect of Quakerism, which is more that liberal free thought sect of Quakerism where you're not indoctrinated. So we sat around for an hour in meditation, and what happens is you're to sit in silence. That's the whole gist of it. You sit in silence for the hour of the meeting, but sometimes if someone feels inclined to speak, if they feel the calling of God or the Spirit of God pushing them to speak, then a random person can just suddenly speak and they can say what they want. And while I was at the meeting, one woman broke the silence of the meeting in the hour, and she read a passage from a book she had been reading about philosophy. And that was great. So what happens is you sit in silence for an hour, but if someone feels the calling to speak, then they will speak. And I didn't go to the next week's meeting, but my mum said, I think, that the next week 3 people felt the calling to speak and spoke and broke the silence. So you sit around for an hour in silence, and if someone feels the calling of God to speak, then they speak freely. And from what Wikipedia was saying, this is this idea the Quakers have, or that some sects of the Quakers have, that each individual is the pastor, and each individual can preach. So everyone in the group can preach, and this is why it's you sit around in silence, and anyone in the group can then pipe up and say what they want to say or what they feel called to say. So it's the idea that the divine can flow through any member of the group. There isn't one member of the group who has the divine knowledge and the divine message to impart on everyone else and indoctrinate everyone else, but that any member of the group can be called on to speak, and that what they speak is valid and is coming from the divine power, the God, the Holy Spirit, the higher power is speaking through them at the meeting. So you feel called to speak by God. So everyone in the group could potentially be the preacher, is the idea of this. So I actually think that's a pretty cool idea. It means there's not one guy dictating to everyone what the whole church has to believe. Everybody gets to speak freely and express their own interpretation of God. I'm pretty down with that. I like that sort of idea. It's more liberal, and it lets everyone participate and everyone be equal. Another thing my mother told me that she researched about the Quakers, which appealed to her, was that the Quakers are pacifists, that they're strongly anti-war, and that they're strongly for social justice issues, and they seem to be, or some sects of the Quakers seem to be very left-leaning. And she said something about during World War II or Vietnam or something, the Quakers couldn't get called up because it was against their religion. Well, that's good. And there's a number of churches that couldn't get called up because war was against their religion. I like the governments respect that. But the Quakers don't have to fight in some wars, apparently, according to my mother, because it's against their religion. But I'm down with any religion that's anti-war, because I'm anti-war, and I'm down with anyone who's anti-war and pacifist, because that's how we should be. So yeah, we sat around for an hour in silence, and one woman broke the silence when I attended the meeting, and she read some quotes from a book she was reading. And that was good. And then after that, they all have tea. And that's the part my mum's struggling with, because she's not very social and she hasn't had the confidence. She stays for about 10 minutes. She's gone to 4 or 5 meetings now. She stays for about 10 minutes and tries to have a conversation with the group, but she can't bring herself to do it because she's not very social. But she'll get better. And I'm going to attend more of these Quaker meetings with my mother as moral support to help her build her social network. Unfortunately, for that, in regards to that, I've just started attending Sunday sessions with my graphics mentor, Tajan Lee, and those sessions are 9 to 1, and the Quakers meeting is 10 till 11. So what I'm planning on doing is every sort of 2 or 3 months, I'm going to cancel my Sunday session and attend the Quakers meeting with my mum to support her to build her social network. Plus, I do like the idea of a church where everyone can be the preacher and everyone gets to speak a message which is viewed by the rest of the congregation as divine, and there isn't one person just spewing doctrine at you and mind controlling you and indoctrinating you into the church. That all being said, I had a look on Wikipedia about the Quakers, and this sort of process of sitting around in silence and everyone can speak is only applicable to some factions of the Quakers group, and there are, from what Wikipedia says, there are many factions of the Quakers group who do have a pastor who preaches a message at people, and they do view Jesus as divine and the Bible as holy doctrine to be followed rigidly, and that's the stuff I'm not into, because I'm into being an individual and having your own ideas about how the world works and your own idea of God. I do believe in a higher power some days. Like I've told you, I believe the universe is a simulation created by higher beings. So I'm into having your own interpretations of God, and I'm not going to let any religious pastor indoctrinate me into their view of what morality and right and wrong and ethics is. I have my own ideas of those things. So, as I said, Wikipedia has shown me that this practice of this form of Quakerism is only some factions of Quakerism, and other factions of Quakerism are more rigidly strict with doctrine and preaching sermon to people and do have a pastor. But I'll continue to attend the Quakers meetings when I can take a Sunday off my sessions to support my mother. And I do like that free-spirited way that meeting was held. And clearly this section of the Quakers is that very liberal, free thought sort of denomination of the Quakers, which I'm down with because I'm very spiritual as well. So it's nice just to go along with Mum and spend some time with Mum anyway. So there's a bit about me attending the Quakers meeting some weeks ago and what I've learned about the Quakers. So drop a comment in the comment section what you think about the Quakers. Do you think they're just a cult, or are you into the Quakers?